Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Petaluma Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee for Wednesday, December 6th. Clerk, can you please take roll?
Osselmeyer,
Here.
Bond, Camarda,
Here.
Earl, Garcia,
Here.
Quint,
Here.
Rakusin, Tar,
Here.
Barnacle.
Present.
Thank you, Clerk. Just before we jump into the agenda, I wanted to acknowledge that the meeting went really long last time and take responsibility for the lack of decorum. And I think that our committee is generally respectful and our conversation is really important and valuable, but I just want to remind everybody that very focused comments are important. We have quite a few, we have 3 important agenda items tonight, and I know people had to leave last time, it got too late. So if we can just make sure that we're kind of focused in our feedback and maintain respect to staff and the public and each other, that would be appreciated. So moving to general public comment. During general public comment, the public is invited to make comments on items of public interest that are within the committee's subject matter jurisdiction and that are not listed on the current agenda. Public comments are limited up to 3 minutes per person. Depending on the number of persons wishing to address the committee, time will be allocated in equal shares, totaling no more than 15 minutes. And I have 1 speaker card right now. Clerk, were there other comments received prior to the meeting?
No other comments were received for general public comment.
Thank you. And Pete Gang?
It's on. Okay, there we go. I just wanted to announce 2 things. One is the 2nd annual Petaluma Holiday Lighted Bike Ride, which will be taking place on December 22nd. The first ride was last year. We expected 40 or 50 people and got maybe 150. And so I think it's going to be big this year. We have 25 sponsors. The ride starts and finishes at Aquas at 5:30. It's a very modest 5 flat miles, intentionally kid-friendly. So hopefully publicize it well. The other one is at the suggestion of Chair Camarda, a group of residents is building an entry for the gingerbread showcase that will be a section of the proposed 5th Street neighborhood greenway. It'll be interesting. That's all I can say. Modeling our street ambitions in gingerbread and candy. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, that closes public comment. And we don't have any presentations, which moves us to the approval of minutes for November 1st, 2023. Committee, are there any changes you would like to be made to the minutes? Okay, the meeting minutes will be accepted as is. And let's see. Moving to public hearings and matters for consideration. Our first item is to review and provide feedback on the Lynch Creek Trail improvements, Edith Street to North McDowell Boulevard. And Ken, I believe you're presenting this item?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Bjorn, thankfully, is going to be there running this. So, and I'll just start out saying we're not going to be doing actively any design work, till the start of the new year. So if you have comments, please, we don't need to get we welcome them tonight, but if you have comments, send them to Bjorn, and, we'll put it in there. So you shouldn't feel like you need to get everything, together here. Thank you very much, Chair Camarda, committee members, staff, public, to hear about Lynch Creek Trail. So this, just a little bit of background, this for me is, the last sort of major gap closure of Lynch Creek Trail, and it's kind of our unpolished gem of Petaluma, and it's looking pretty darn good. We're going to close the last gap, and we're going to make some improvements that are needed, and then input that you give me are things that we want to definitely implement either on this project or future ones. So I'm going to talk first about North McDowell to the first pedestrian bridge. This is going downstream or inbound to downtown or towards Holly Park, however you want to characterize that. And then the next is Payran to Edith Court, which is towards Lakeville, towards the new development, River Bend. And then I'll give you a little summary on the next steps. So the North McDowell to Holly Park, we're going to make improvements at the roadway there, and then going in, it's a degraded asphaltic concrete pathway, and so we're going to want to take care of the actual pathway surface, as well as drainage, and as well as putting in some striping. So some of the items here is we'll go in and, we work with a biologist to go through and cut back the vegetation, do that at the right time of the year. We're going to clean the drainage, we're going to seal the cracks. And then the mitigation for those cracks is to put an actual geotextile fabric on top of them and then put another layer of asphaltic concrete. Gonna try to get rid of as much graffiti removal, just clean up the whole thing. We want to make it sparkle. And the wayfinding signage may not be in this initial contract, but Bjorn has a lot of really good ideas, and we definitely want to do the right thing to get people inbound, outbound, on the pathway, and then marking and striping it. So this is a engineering drawing, because I'm an engineer, and you're like, what the heck is this? But this is, if you cut the pathway in a section, what are the things that you see here? Well, on the outside, we're going to try to improve the walking surface on the outside so you don't just drop off. We're going to, obviously on the pathway, improve that surface of the asphaltic concrete. We call it AC. The drainage is an issue in places on it, so we want to make sure that we can drain both sides of the pathway. So that's what this cross section shows. And then as we go up to North McDowell, from the very first time I rode there, I never liked that intersection. So we're going to go ahead and do some striping and lay down a little bit more asphalt there to improve the connectivity and the usability of that. So if you're on your cargo bike with a trailer, can you make that maneuver? Yes. Now you can get on the sidewalk. And I will say on this whole area, the connectivity of Lynch Creek Trail to Lucchese. We have a separate project that we're going to look at the improvements for that are needed, and that's something we've been very fortunate to get some money from SCTA to do that work. The contract has been signed, so that you're going to start hearing that as we move into 2024. And Bjorn, don't hesitate if you think there's something we need to add on any of that. But and just in a nutshell, what are the improvements we can make? We can make improvements on the signalization. We can look at a future overpass. We can look at going under. There's a drainage culvert there. They do that on the peninsula a lot, getting under 101. So we're going to make improvements on that whole connectivity. And then, so then we go from Payran to Edith, and this is going to be very similar to what you've already seen, the connection from River Bend or Edith Court to Lakeville, and also what we did by Holly Park. So we're going to improve the ADA access to Payran, which for me is very important, just getting up to the street. We're going to have an 8 to 10 foot concrete path. We're trying to get it as wide as we can within what we can work with there. Have the 1 to 2 foot stabilized, quarry fine stabilized shoulders on that. Again, get rid of graffiti removal, look at the wayfinding and mark and stripe. So we're gonna have trash cans in locations. We've got 5 benches, and then we've got the lighting system similar to what is at River Bend, and that's going to be going in. That is solar. So, and with that, take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ken. Pamela, can we start with you?
Thanks, Ken. That was great. Glad to see we're polishing this up. Like you said, I think it is a gem. What kind of lighting were you thinking is going to be included at the underpass? I wasn't quite sure if you said there was something that was on the slide that I missed. I saw the solar along the other section. But.
Yeah. Wow, you drilled right in on that, Pam, and I thought about that, and I like somebody is going to ask it, and so thank you. So we've got a light standard up on the bridge. The difficulty is getting a meter, because we can't obviously do solar. Although I was sort of thinking, could we put a panel somewhere out there, but then vandalism and people stealing it, and that got too complicated. So I'm like, well, we're just going to go hook up to the light standard. We might be able to do it. It's kind of a separate project. I looked at it on the arch. I'd like to get lighting on the arch, and PG&E, we figured out how to do it. We just tie in here. It was very simple, and PG&E says no. The agreement, and Gina's going to know more and get into the details if you really want to know about it. But I recognize that, and it's gonna need to be a separate project where we would have to put in another meter. I've got a light standard. I would think we could just tie into it, and I'm going to check on that. But they weren't. It's $60,000 to try to light the arch, and we haven't. We will eventually do it. I just didn't have the.
So when you refer to the light standard, is that at the highway level, and you're just adding another fixture that points back down?
Yeah, there's an agreement that City PG&E has where we can tie our light. When I say light standard, so that's the street light. So I've got a street light there. I looked at it. It'd be simple to run the conduit on the bridge, structure, and then drop it down to the flood wall and run lighting along there. So I already know how to do it, but it ends up being an issue with PG&E. The wattage needed isn't that great. I'm pretty sure. I don't think there would be any issue in trying to do that. But the agreement that the city has to do that is very specific. So
okay, thank you for that. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Councilmember Barnacle. Okay, I have a few questions. Let's see. I'm wondering on the entrance, if you're going east on Payran and you're making a left, are there going to be any indicators in the street for bikes or pedestrians, I guess?
So you're on the roadway, and you've come over from the boulevard and you're on the bridge, and you're coming down. You want to make a left.
Yeah.
Onto Lynch Creek Trail and drop down there. And how do you know? That's the wayfinding signage.
But there's not going to be any striping or anything on the road. The roadway is probably 35 feet in width. I got rid of the parking right at the ramp there that you want to drive over, so people
the sight lines are improved. I met with Peter and Bruce out there on that, and that got done. But at this point, we were just looking at wayfinding, but I'm thinking out loud. It's something we could consider. I mean, I don't know how we would do that, to put some striping
Right.
in there, or.
Maybe even just another sign like bikes ride with traffic or some way. I know I ride on there with my kids, and we're in the middle of the lane before we get there to make sure that, they see us stopping to wait to make that left
So you
turn.
can make that left with
Yeah.
the oncoming traffic, yeah. Yeah, I don't, okay, thank you.
We could look to see if we have width to maybe do some sort of either like a two-stage turn, to cross over.
Yeah.
If you're riding, what direction is that on a confusing axis? If you're
Towards
riding,
the
if you're
library.
riding towards Washington on
Yeah.
Payran, that's the left turn you're describing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll look at that.
And then after the bridge, when you're going towards McDowell on the Lynch Creek Trail, there's an informal path that goes towards Burlington. And I've actually helped people get out of the creek who have gone on that path and tried to cross over to get back on the LCT.
Right.
So some wayfinding, I guess, would be important about like LCT this way, or
So are you talking about Holly Park, or you're saying Burlington? Oh, I see where you are on Burlington. I mean, some of these connections are sort of the next phase of what I want to improve. And I think, the wayfinding signage off the trail, certainly, that's easy, but then also improving the surfaces of some of the connector trails.
that would be a possibility.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in this project likely. It could be if we can, kind of do it as a change order or something in there. And I'm definitely thinking about that, but it might end up being kind of a next phase for the work.
I think.
I need to, do you understand?
Yes, yeah, I think what we're looking at is that, so we have a citywide wayfinding project that we want to get going into into planning and design, and that would address the whole entire system throughout the city, so
Right.
including
It's
these
an
connections
informal
off
path,
the
but
creek,
it's
yeah.
a nice connection.
Oh
for
yeah, no,
that.
it's designated as it's
is,
designated.
okay.
It's public access. It's not.
I didn't know
You're
that.
not breaking any laws by riding on that.
Are you talking about the maintenance road that
Yeah.
goes? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
that's part of our
Yeah.
Okay.
active transportation network. So that's a connection. That's something we would sign as part of the citywide project.
And we currently have the budget to complete this project, the one that you presented. That's in the budget.
It looks like it. I haven't gone out to bid with it, but the engineer's estimate shows that we have the monies in there. And things in the construction world, things change rapidly on it, but right now we do, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Ken. And I'm really excited about improved crossing at McDowell. That would be great.
Yeah, well, and that's, like I say, a separate project there, but I'm very anxious to get that going and look at it. And I'm sure Bjorn's told you about, we're doing Corona, a bike connection Rainier, North McDowell, and then McKinsey, doing all four of those. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Adam.
Great, thank you. I definitely support Nicole's point about just needing that connection, especially on Payran. But as you're coming off, I know that's outside of the scope. I just wanted to second that, just considering the connections. And I think getting back to something you said, Ken, also about just Lynch Creek Trail being kind of like the unsung hero. I guess I was just thinking of other projects that are out of scope as well too. So, but things that maybe you can plan for within this project specifically. So where my mind was going to, I think, was where Washington Creek, that bridge, Washington Creek and Petaluma River meet. And I was just looking online, it's a partial fish passage barrier. There's kind of like the little concrete, there. And at one point I remember riding by and seeing some kids down there just kind of interacting, playing with the water down there. And I just thought to really celebrate the river means kind of interacting with it or providing, planning for opportunities to interact with it. So what I guess the proposal might be is just having some type of safe but informal walkway that's kind of rocky, that you could almost walk across that and allow, to walk across Washington Creek. I'm not sure if that location, if you know where I'm talking about.
So this is by Holly Park. So if you're,
Yeah,
if you're
exactly.
at Payran heading, you're going to go across the bridge of Washington Creek. So on either side of that, possibly getting some access or something.
Yeah, kind of just a simple informal access.
I think we have not totally at all understood, and certainly not, we haven't developed any of the potential for any of that. I look at from North McDowell on Washington Boulevard, paralleling Washington Boulevard. There is a maintenance road in there. So we've got sort of maintenance roads, trails along all these drainage ways, and we don't own them all. Sonoma Water has some, and I think that there's a real potential of developing all those and having all this connectivity. So, anyway, it's
Great.
And there is a trail, an existing kind of recreational natural surface trail that does run. So I pulled it up on screen share here. This is Washington Creek. And if you follow the east, basically the east bank of the creek, that is a formalized trail that allows access.
And I would like to get ADA access into that park, and I don't have that yet, and I'm still kind of mulling that over. But, the opportunities don't stop, believe me.
No further questions.
Thank you. Franklin?
Yeah, no questions. Just wanted to comment and say, as an East Sider and someone who uses a bike to get from the east side to downtown, really excited about it. So
Good, thank you.
Marcia?
Thank you. I have some questions. For example, let me start with, when we were talking about making a left turn across Payran and then going down to the Lynch Creek Trail, could we just do our green and not green stripes across, along with signage on both sides?
That's kind of what I was
suggesting
thinking. Is
that's
this
a
some sort
route?
of Sharrow configuration? And I don't have quite the concept in my mind. Bjorn's really good at those things. So, but that's kind of what I was thinking. Is this some way of, giving some breadcrumb, situation, but also flagging a conflict area. So you're, just getting some paint on the round for directional, control and conflict, understanding to the users. So, yeah.
I just thought that might be an alternative.
Yeah, no, I think it is. Again, the width we don't have much width there. And, the city, when we get down below 40 feet of width, that's where we have challenges in doing some of those things. But, yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have another question. I got lost in the very beginning because I usually, when I think of Lynch Creek Trail, I start at Lakeville or I start at Water Street and I walk east. So
Okay.
you started your presentation moving the other direction. So I think. So when you started, you were talking about the segment that goes from North McDowell to going in the direction of Lakeville.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the current asphalt part of our pathway, right?
Correct, both sides from the underpass. So we don't do anything on the 101 underpass, but we go both sides of that. Yeah.
So that's where you're going to, it's again going to be the surface of that area. It's always concerned me because we've got splits and cracks and crevices, and it is such a dangerous area for wheelchairs and walkers and bicyclists and little kids, and everybody's always falling into the crack and then crashing. So it does concern me. So the surface is going to be made of,
It's asphaltic concrete. It's going to be the same surface that's there, but we're going to go ahead and put what they call petromat, which is a geotextile fabric, and it gives the ability to kind of bridge. We're going to fill the cracks, and then it's going to bridge those, that surface there that basically goes through shrinkage and expansion, summer and winter conditions. So yeah.
okay, thank you. And then, did you mention a pathway to Holly? From
Well,
Lynch Creek Trail up to the road, Holly Road?
Yeah,
Holly,
I
Holly Lane?
I want to start seeing this, we did the work up at Prince Park. We've done, Payran section. We did Fox Hollow. We've done all these things. We're closing the last gap. And now I want to start looking at the connections that we need to get, viable connections, hopefully, ADA compliant to the neighborhoods. We've got the main drag done now. Let's start working on some of the other ones. So.
Well, I just keep thinking that if we're still having, and I don't know whether you are or not, but accessibility onto the Payran Street, or Payran Bridge has always been dicey because it's not ADA compliant.
Yep.
And if we can't do that, couldn't we use one of those pathways going into Holly?
No, we can make it ADA compliant. It's been
We can do
surveyed.
it?
It's been surveyed. We got to pull back a little bit of the Army Corps work in order to get the elevations to all work. But there's we're doing a little. We're having to adjust all the grades to allow for ADA, and we bench it up. So like you've seen, you go up at slopes and you get a respite, a landing surface, and then you go up the next step.
Oh, that's just awesome, because that
Yeah.
way it's an easy connection, hopefully, for those who have mobility devices.
Yeah.
And they
Or-
can get to the library or the swim center.
Parents pushing their kids or
Yeah.
however, yeah.
Totally cool. Thank you so much, because this Lynch Creek Trail has meant a lot to me in the last few years, and it's lovely seeing where we've come and where we're almost ready to. I feel like we need to cut a ribbon or something.
I think so. That would be good. Yeah. And I did talk with Friends of Lynch Creek Trail and just let them know about this presentation and such. So,
Thank you very much, Ken.
Go ahead.
So just a follow-up question and comment. So just to understand, when you're talking about filling in cracks, what are you actually keeping and what are you kind of starting from scratch? I was thinking from the engineering view, it looked like you were starting from scratch, but then I was confused.
no, we're
at
leaving everything in there. We're not
So what
having.
cracks are you filling?
Well, there's just these longitudinal cracks I wrote it last week, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these things. I've filled them once. I filled them in a couple of years ago and tried to seal as much of the surface. The degradation of these type of pathways is the water that gets in there. So if we can seal that all up, that'll help immensely. So before we put on the layer of geotextile fabric and the final layer of asphaltic concrete, we're going to go ahead and seal all the cracks, seal everything there. So we're trying to get as, impermeable of a surface going on to that. Yeah.
Okay, then you're just building on top of it?
Building right on top of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
And then, thank you for that. And then just, I guess, to belabor the Payran crossing, I think going a little further than kind of the striped markings on the ground seemed appropriate, just given that southbound approach. I think coming up over the bridge, your line of sight is very limited, so you can't really see anything on the ground, let alone somebody, shorter folks crossing or something. So if there's up for future discussion, I would definitely recommend putting some type of kind of flashing crosswalk just to make sure that if you did want to be able to get across safely or move what have you, that consideration is given. And that's all.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a funky area on it. So.
And just to add to that, when you're coming out of the Lynch Creek Trail back onto Payran and making a right, it needs to be like a lot of daylighting and brush cut back because it's hard to see the oncoming cars, and I have to pull out like fairly wide to get enough speed going up
Right.
because you're going up on the incline there.
Yeah, there's no vegetation there, though.
Well,
Are you
yeah.
talking about it, so if you're on Lynch Creek Trail and you're going to turn right onto Payran and go up to the boulevard, that movement? Okay.
Yeah. So then on like going towards Washington side, there's a truck that usually parks there, and I think there's like a open kind of like cyclone fence area now. But yeah, there is this bush. It's hard to
Oh, I
see
see what you're
around
saying. Yeah,
hedge.
yeah. I'll have to see. I don't think that's city property, but I'd have to check on it. We can look at that. I actually think, maybe some more paint in the road there. We could do something to kind of try to bulb that out in a. In fact, that was an idea. Actually, I think Pete might have mentioned it, but just try to do like a quick build bulb out there and put some vertical elements to give a little more presence to it. And I met with a neighbor. They were nice. They didn't mind losing the parking space. I was like, good. But that's a good idea. We could definitely do something there. And I will say, we've spent a fair amount of time just on the striping in this section of Lynch Creek Trail to try to get people. We don't want people whizzing down there, so I'm trying to narrow the pathway, put speed gradation markings in. We use it for motor vehicle traffic. We did it on I Street, so I'm doing the same thing here. I get complaints of, those electric bikes are going too fast and people are speeding, and so just to give, some presence on the pavement there to, so it doesn't look like a highway to cyclists that are going really fast. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kelly, I know you just arrived. Do you have any comments to add? Okay. So with that, we'll open public comment. The public is invited to make comments on this item. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. If you haven't done so already, please fill out a speaker card and bring it to the clerk. Clerk, have you received any comments on this item prior to the meeting?
There were no public comments received.
Thank you. And I don't have any speaker cards, right?
If I may
Please.
fill it out. Sorry for defying the rules and order. As long as I'm here, I have a couple of comments about Lynch Creek Trail, which I ride often. One is about where Lynch Creek Trail crosses North McDowell Boulevard. In the last week or 2 weeks, I've been going through the document called Petaluma's Carbon Reduction Blueprint, the Greenhouse Reduction Plan, which is our draft climate action plan. And one of the items in there is a mobility priority policy, which talks about, in all of our transportation planning, giving priority to pedestrians and then bicycles and other forms of micromobility, and last, giving priority to motorized vehicles. And that suggests to me that where Lynch Creek Trail crosses North McDowell, if we're thinking long-term, shouldn't we be giving priority to pedestrians and non-motorized vehicles in some way of, signalized intersection? Number two, wayfinding. I know we're working on it. It's really, really critically important. If one doesn't know about the existence of Lynch Creek Trail, you just don't know that it's there. And my final comment is about trash cans. Again, given what I'm reading about in this greenhouse gas reduction blueprint, every place we have a trash can at least have a recycling container. So one landfill and one recycling. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And that closes public comment and brings it back to the committee for discussion. No further discussion? Yes, please.
I have a couple of things. I didn't have any questions, but I did have comments. I want to echo the calls for traffic calming and signage at Payran. That really is it startles a lot of drivers, just like it does people on bikes and walking. Also echo the calls for turn here signs and things like that. I mean, I ride it frequently, and I feel like every time I ride it on like a First Friday at 5 bike ride, I wind up like going straight where I need to turn because I just don't pay attention. And then the final thing that I think is worth mentioning is the fairgrounds is going to become a much more relevant destination in the future. And so connections from Holly to Lynch Creek Trail is going to become an important connection, as is the connections on Payran. And I'm not sure that we have like a solid way for someone who lived on Rainier to get to, they could get to Lynch Creek. But once you're on Lynch Creek, I don't think it's clear, like, so when you think about wayfinding signage and things like that, like fairgrounds this way, something like that, and like try and steer people toward a safe route to get to the fairgrounds, because there's going to be orders of magnitude more people going there on a daily basis, starting next year. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, one maybe more question from asking for technical transportation expertise in these kind of situations. A lot of these tight turns around Lynch Creek and Payran, especially on the pathway side, are there? I know there's like the kind of the concave mirrors that are used sometimes, but if I was a kid, I just want to break them.
Yeah.
So like, is there any other solution, or?
Well, what we ended up doing there is markings on the pavement where we tried to really give the user, if you're coming down from Payran, to give the user this ability, push them out far enough so that we don't end up with a conflict zone there with people coming under the bridge, heading, we'll say, east, and then somebody coming down from Payran wanting to head west on the trail. And that movement is something that, we've got paint on the ground to try to, give a little bit better, try to slow the traffic down, try to slow, bicyclists down on that. So that's kind of how we were thinking about it. Putting in, that's definitely, some sort of a mirror or something is definitely there. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had a couple instances where just that particular movement, and I'm heading westbound, somebody's going the other way, but the guy was on a electric single wheel machine. I was like, wow, you're going really fast. So much faster than I was expecting. So
yeah. I know, and there's no way to really improve the view because of the height difference. Something that I sometimes do for safety purposes, and maybe you could have a little sign, is that if you are going eastbound, Holland, really going fast or whatever, it's like, yeah, there's definitely a conflict there. Right. But just being able to like ring your bell or honk your horn, do something like to let people know you're coming. However you say that succinctly in a sign.
Right.
So then when you're coming down, you can at least hear, oh, there's some audible noise or something like that.
Yeah.
But it just dawned upon me. I don't know how, do the one-wheelers, can you honk your horn if you're on those?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
For those?
You use it with a cowbell around your neck or something.
Yeah, but something to encourage maybe behavioral change in terms of, ring your bell, call out when you're coming up.
I think in all the projects we do, we solve one problem, but then, we may create another problem. It's lesser of a problem. And we're trying to get people walking and biking and taking transit. Councilmember Barnacles, I just wanted to reflect on that connections to the fairground, because that was something, we got the main library, we got a shopping center, we got the pool, we got the skate park, we got a transit center there, we got all these different things going on. Originally, I was like, wow, we'll get them to Payran and then we'll go there. And I go, Payran is crazy, so we get them Holly Park and Ellis and get them in there. So and that'll help McKinley. So I think there's some synergy with doing all that. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Thank you. Moving to item 3, review and provide feedback on frontage improvements on North McDowell Boulevard and Corona Road associated with the Meridian and Petaluma North Station projects. And Ken Eichstadt, this is you again, I believe.
This one's actually me.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Bjorn.
Sorry for the confusion. Thank you, and good evening, committee members. This should be a fairly quick item. Just wanted to take an opportunity to bring something back to the committee that hasn't been before you for a few years. So for several of you, this will be new. The Danco Affordable Housing Project and Petaluma North Station are both moving forward. This is up at near the intersection of Corona Road and North McDowell Boulevard. The Danco project includes 131 affordable housing units, and obviously the Petaluma North Station project will be SMART's new second station up in this area. And the Danco project has already been approved, so that project, the site plan and all of its circulation components are all set to go, will not be coming back to PBAC for review. But the city right now is working closely with Danco and their engineers, as well as SMART, to try to finalize the frontage improvements on North McDowell Boulevard and Corona Road. And so that's something we do have some ability to influence before this project goes to construction. So I wanted to take this opportunity tonight to just talk through this at a very high kind of conceptual level without engineering drawings, try to simplify it as much as possible, and really focus in on PBAC's feedback on what you would like to see on these two frontages. When the developer and our community development department engaged PBAC last in 2019 and 2020, as noted in the staff report, PBAC's feedback was preference for Class 1 multi-use trails along North McDowell Boulevard. So that's something that I wanted to circle back on, confirm that is still the case. And also I just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of explain sort of the circulation through this area, because I know it is a little confusing and it's difficult to visualize. So I did, in addition to this map, which was attached in the agenda, have prepared a couple of really simple images that I'll share tonight. But first, I'll just kind of walk you through this image. So again, you can see my cursor. So this is North McDowell Boulevard. Here is Corona Road. Project site is on this triangular piece of land. It includes both, again, the Danco project and the SMART station, which is located in this area. And so SMART is actually have already awarded the bid to construct their multi-use trail extension from South Point Boulevard to Pengrove, as well as the station itself. And so following that path of travel, the SMART trail extension will be located on the east side of the tracks. It will come up to North McDowell Boulevard, make a nice 90-degree crossing of the tracks, access a widened sidewalk up to near one of the intersections with the mobile home park here. And there will be a new signalized crossing taking people across North McDowell Boulevard. From that point, there's a decision point where you can cross the tracks and continue on the SMART trail on the east side of the tracks, or you could walk or bike eastbound along North McDowell Boulevard. If you're biking Northbound on North McDowell Boulevard, there will be a ramp from the sidewalk or from the bike lane up onto the widened sidewalk to again facilitate that safer crossing of the tracks. The whole goal here is to have people cross the tracks, whether they're walking or biking, at a perpendicular angle and in a controlled fashion. And I'll just show a couple of examples from other crossings this will be very similar to. So this is down at Anderson Drive in San Rafael. Highlighted here is the path of travel for people biking through this crossing. So again, exiting from the on-street bike lane onto a off-street trail, crossing the tracks at a right angle, and then accessing a ramp back down onto the bike lane. Got some images here. This is what those ramps look like down in San Rafael, where you access the sidewalk. This is what one of the crossings looks like. You can see someone actually taking advantage right there. In the other direction, same idea. A ramp up before the rail crossing, and then again, here's your more controlled rail crossing. So that's just trying to help you visualize what will be in place on North McDowell Boulevard again, with the ramps in both directions. So a couple things wanted to get your feedback on tonight. Again, the North McDowell Boulevard frontage improvements. So we are looking again just at the project site. No changes would be made to the southbound direction on North McDowell Boulevard. So that will still be the class 4 protected bike lane that we have in place today, up until that signalized crossing with the new and improved sidewalk and rail crossing. So we want to focus in on this frontage on the northbound side of North McDowell. And I have a couple of cross sections there. And then I also want to get some feedback on Corona Road. Do not have cross sections there to share. But we'll go to North McDowell first. So again, there's been a lot of back and forth between the city and even within the city, talking to fire about their requirements to be able to access the buildings on the project site. And we've essentially have about 16 feet to play with here, where we can accommodate some combination of bicycle and pedestrian facilities and landscaping strips. So this is our recommended option. This is consistent with the feedback that PBAC provided back in 2020 to provide to make the most of that width and basically maximize it by providing a two-way multi-use trail that would allow people to walk and bike in both directions along the north side of North McDowell Boulevard along the project site. And the alternative would be an on-street directional bike lane like we have today. Again, that eats up a bit of real estate, and it does take away, the sidewalk would be narrowed somewhere between 5 and 8 feet, and we wouldn't recommend including a planting strip because we do expect this to be a pretty busy sidewalk, and a 5-foot sidewalk is quite narrow. So those are basically the two options that we are looking at. Wanted to get your feedback on that. And then likewise with Corona Road, Corona Road is, there's still a lot of moving pieces there, but we're looking for the same feedback on how to maximize our right-of-way availability and get PBAC's feedback on whether you would prefer to see on-street bike lanes versus widened multi-use pathways, basically wide sidewalks that accommodate people walking and biking in both directions. So with that, happy to turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you, Bjorn. Marcia, may we start with you?
Gosh, I haven't seen this lately, but I do remember it from a bit of time ago. Looking at I'm looking at the page which is titled North McDowell Boulevard, Corona Road to Smart Tracks. I prefer, I guess I need questions. If we were to do option number 1, where we're talking about a multi-use trail for bikes and peds, would it be striped?
Yes, we can stripe it. We could do edge lines, and a dashed center line would seem appropriate.
My second question is, are there going to be power poles allowed in this area?
No, I believe I would have to double check, but I believe all of the utilities are being undergrounded.
Okay. Looking down at the very bottom of this page, you referenced this Class 1 trail would provide adequate width for two-way travel for people on foot and bike. What constitutes adequate?
So a class 1 trail, the minimum width is 8 feet with 2-foot shoulders. And so in this location, we have 12 feet. And you could count, the planning strip could count as shoulder space. It's basically, you need a little bit of a shy distance or a little bit of a buffer from any sort of, edges of curbs or vertical objects. But 12 feet is sufficient.
Great, thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Franklin?
So I'm just trying to envision the site when the housing is built and the train station is there, and if there's a fair amount of activity in this space. Personally, I like the idea of separating the biking from pedestrians for the pedestrian sake, for the pedestrian safety. So I would have to give my vote to option 2. It would be my preference.
Sorry, I'm thinking, just got to think this through. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think I'm wrestling with this as well. I feel like I need more time to think about, but my gut follows kind of what Franklin's saying, just around thinking about the importance of separating, faster bikes, given micromobility and electrification. But I could, probably be easily swayed the other way, but that's, I guess, where I'm feeling initially. I guess that's option 2.
Thank you, Adam. I think the planting strip adds a lot to user experience in that area, actually, and I think that could be nice. I like the idea of the maximum distance for bike and ped between cars, and I think that's really important. I am thinking about the mobile home park and more elderly people, disabled people living over there and their experience being on a multi-use trail with the bikes. And I think that it is possible for us to have both on that section. It's not a long section. In a harmonious way. And I'm trying to think about the project, where the train station will be, where people will be getting off of the train, which is in that acute angle near the Brody Ranch, right? And then between that and North McDowell, that's going to be parking lot. I'm imagining people will be riding their bike through there rather than getting on Corona. That's, I think, what I would do. And then what would the movement be from there? Would there be a fence, or could I just go through the parking lot and get into that Corona intersection right there to get into McDowell? Or would I have to go up, get off of the train, cross the tracks, go to that signalized intersection and ride Corona down?
Yeah, so I think there are a few people are going to do a lot of different things. The expectation for people biking using the Smart Trail is that they are using Corona to get to and from between the station and trail. However, I do think the natural desire line might kind of send people through the site and possibly have them use this sidewalk in a going southbound to get down to that signalized crossing and then continue either on southbound McDowell or on the Smart Trail. That's a very likely scenario that will happen, I think. So that was another, I think, merit to the multi-use trail idea was that it does formalize two-way bike traffic on a stretch that does seem likely to have it.
And is there, like, this blue arrow going, I don't know if this is north on Corona, like,
Oh, yeah.
where, there's no improvements going to be made there? Or is there a way that those people could go through Brody Ranch somehow and have a safer route? Like, even navigating that roundabout is a little bit tricky for non-experienced cyclists, I would say.
Yeah, there is access. You can see this pathway from Corona that leads you kind of into Brody Ranch, and then you could wind up kind of through the neighborhood if you're trying to go up onto Sonoma Mountain Parkway. Yeah, that's definitely an
maybe
option.
some wayfinding there would be helpful.
Yeah, this area of Corona past the tracks is kind of outside of this project's limits. We're basically looking at everything from the rail and trail crossing to the west.
Those are my questions. Thank you. Kelly.
I'm just wondering what, excuse me, thought you've given to transitions, since we do have a lot of, I'm thinking about, I'm going north on McDowell, and if it is a class 1, what does that transition look like across Corona onto, like, do you anticipate green striping across that intersection so bikes going to keep going, but people on the sidewalk would use the crosswalk? Or I'm just thinking about the transition points from different classes, and if it would make sense to do a class 4 just for continuity's sake. I don't know. I could be persuaded either way, but I'm just wondering about transitions and the thought there.
Yeah, that'll need some careful design. We have a little more real estate as you approach the intersection, actually, where we may even be able to, if we had a multi-use trail, we may even be able to kind of transition the bike lane class 4 off of the sidewalk, bring it down to street level up to the intersection, and then look at, I would love to try to get some sort of protected intersection in place where, people biking don't have to worry about sharing a signal phase with right turning traffic, or they're positioned ahead of the right turning traffic. That's one of the big items that we need to figure out. But yeah, so I don't have a good answer other than we are looking very closely at that transition back at the intersection.
What was the proposed material for, if you said it, if it was a class 1? Would it be?
It would be concrete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there at some of the proposed crossings or those places where there's right angles and people might be, just reminding me, we're just talking about Payran and the Lynch Creek Trail and people coming and turning from different directions. Do you anticipate those spaces being sufficiently wide to, a long bike meets a parent with a big stroller or something, to be able to make those turns?
Smart really drives the design on those facilities because they're rail crossings, and it's driven by both Smart and the CPUC. So there's not much say that we have on the dimensions and design of those rail crossings, unfortunately.
are the kind of the safety bars or whatever the technical term is that we have near the crossing at Lakeville, is that outside of the city's jurisdiction to influence too, because those are really challenging for bikes as well?
Yeah, that's a point well taken. Yes, those were put in place by SMART. Yeah, and the whole idea is likewise, the new crossing at Payran, they're kind of using channelization to try to slow people down and as they approach rail crossings, and that's my understanding is that that's all kind of driven by the California Public Utilities Commission. So yeah, any feedback you have on those crossings, we would be happy to pass along to SMART, and yeah, it couldn't hurt because I have the same concerns about adaptive bikes, cargo bikes, tandem, any sort of non-traditional bike. Those crossings are all very challenging to navigate. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll save my comments for later. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, feedback to SMART. They're challenging. Please do something different. So questions. Can you put up the option 1, option 2, just so I can see? I don't even know which one I'm talking about right now because I don't know where those are. So I would lean towards what I'm looking at right now. And on the other one, would we be looking at is that like yellow, bollard looking thing? Is that a green bollard or is that concrete?
We can, there might be some flexibility to do a different form of protection here. If we were to go with option 2, we could look at some other forms of separation.
And then can you go back to the other one? Is there a way on the planting strip? I'm leaning towards this one, but on this one, is there a way that the planting strip could actually be like some sort of like water catchment or something like that too? So that it's not just channeling water off, but it's actually catching it?
I believe so. Could double check on that, but I believe so.
Okay. And then would there be any trees over on that side of the street too? And if so, where would they be in the 4-foot planting strip, or over to the right of the 12-foot multi-use trail?
So I'm not sure if we have any in the planting strip. This is all tree placement on this project has all been driven by fire for their access requirements for a ladder truck. Because the buildings exceed a certain height, that triggers their some access requirements. I know we are working hard to maximize the tree opportunities. I know there are some on the project side of so on to the right of the multi-use trail.
Okay.
Not sure if we have any here, but there may be. That's an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the original drawing that was included with the staff report, sorry to make you jump around here. Oops. So I was just looking at the Meridian web page on the city's website. Do you know where the bus stop's going to be?
Is
it still going to be up towards
towards somewhere around here? Yeah.
Gotcha. And then proposed on-street directional bike lanes. Can you just I'm not familiar with that term. Is it class?
Well, in their class 4s for us now with the green bollards.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then signalized. What kind of signal are you thinking? Is it just like the push it and it blinks, blinks, blinks?
This
RRFD?
This is a full signal down here at the for the new what's considered to be the smart trail crossing, and this. Oh, I wish I had Jeff here. I believe this might also be a signal, but at a minimum,
as in like red light, green light, yellow light signal.
Yes, yeah, full traffic signal.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay.
This, given the design at Payran, this could be something else. I'll double check on that, but it's at a minimum it would be a flashing beacon. But I have a feeling it's a full signal as well.
Good. I would encourage the full signal. So my feedback is I think the 12-foot multi-use path is probably the better option, and I would want that on Corona Road as well. I share the chair's concerns about sending bicyclists up to the roundabout there. And just thinking like a kid riding their bike to school on Corona Road from this affordable housing development, and just like thinking, would you have your kid ride their bike on Corona Road up to Corona Creek Elementary? I think that's really that's the bar that I think we want to set with this project, and wherever we can, because it is. I wouldn't let my kid ride their bike from there to Corona Creek Elementary, and it's just a stone's throw away. So anything we can do to address that, and then I think also because of the complexities that we're dealing with here, if we are recommending kids to go into Brody Ranch and then pop out in the neighborhood and pop across the street, like obviously wayfinding is going to be really important for that whole shebang too. And I know we're just talking about the street frontages here, but it's a really exciting project, and it's also a really challenging project, as you know. So think of the children.
It would have been nice to know where the connections would be from the new Danco project, and also kind of the layout of, like the parking lot. But generally speaking, I'm inclined a little bit more towards option one. And question I have is with respect to option two, with the 6-foot bike lane. So the idea would be you'd have cyclists passing each other, in opposite directions in that area. So if you have cyclists going in opposite directions, they're both using that space, or they're on the other side of the street, and that's your expectation?
No, yes. So the expectation in this option is that because of the width, it's only intended for northbound bikes. And then anyone biking southbound, the expectation is that they would be riding on the other side of North McDowell.
Yeah, I wonder if that would really happen, I guess, based on use and people, getting on this area from the new affordable housing or from SMART. And can you say a little bit more about what kind of on-pavement signage there would be if we went in the direction of the 12-foot multi-use trail to help people understand, shared uses and speed and these kinds of things?
So I was surprised it actually didn't come up in Ken's Lynch Creek Trail presentation, but the general striping for multi-use trails includes a white edge line on both sides to define the edge of the trail, and then a dashed yellow center line. So if you go to Marin County, most of their multi-use trails are striped this way. It's something, like I said, we'll be doing that on the Lynch Creek Trail. And the goal, just, whether you're walking or biking, you know to stay on the right side of the dashed yellow line. And you also know that you can pass into the other lane as necessary to pass other slower moving users.
So the idea would be then that a cyclist wouldn't need to pass a pedestrian in the 12-foot section. They would have the full use of that portion that's striped on their side.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after taking another thinking about this more and further understanding that there's a need for two-way traffic on that, I would probably also opt for option one. I would think, though, that the comment that you made about the transition from the multi-use trail back onto the main bike lane would be really important. So, that I think there, just needs to be some thought, and that needs to be a cohesive transition. And that's it. Thank you.
With that, we'll open public comment. The public is invited to make comments on this item Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. If you haven't done so already, please fill out a speaker card and bring it to the clerk. Clerk, have you received any comments prior to the meeting?
Yes, there was one comment received.
Thank you. And I have a comment card from Paul Russell.
Thank you. As a resident in the area, I'm very excited. I like to bike commute along Corona, and I also ride out there with 3 young children, so I'm very excited to see these changes. I definitely want to endorse option number 1 for the street sides that are connected to the project, both on McDowell and Corona. I do think Pamela's point regarding traffic, there'll be 2-way traffic on that path, at least till you get back to the connector that's going to take you towards downtown. I think looking on the other side of Corona, going from Sonoma Mountain towards North McDowell, I would almost be in favor there of the proposed, the one-way traffic like you have currently on McDowell, just to sort of keep that traffic moving. There's a lot of traffic that goes along Corona and then out towards the west side and beyond. So really the class 1 on the project side, but a different treatment on the other side. I'm very concerned about the railroad crossings. So again, a lot of emphasis, really hope SMART gets that right, because that is definitely the most dangerous choke point of any riding I do with my kids in the city currently. That's just a really tough place to cross over right now. So for the whole city, I think that's my biggest fear point whenever I'm on a bike. So I really want to see that addressed in the project. And then the last point is just keeping in mind that this station could bring increased pedestrian traffic towards the breweries. So we do have a destination short way down the street there. So really thinking about the pedestrian flow potentially from the station going north on McDowell. That might be something that we don't think about much, but also there's the whole commercial district. So if the employers are lucky, maybe their staff will be there. So really want to think about those pedestrian connections going north into the commercial area, in addition to what's happening in the residential. And the last piece is thinking about the pathway that's going along the tracks. There's also, in addition to going through it, I think it's Brody Ranch, you also have a pathway along Corona Creek that my kids and I use a lot. And so I want to make sure that that connection still ties into here. And when it comes to wayfinding, the Brody Ranch residents might appreciate the wayfinders actually encouraging the Corona Creek pathway, because that's a real nice path then to get back towards Sonoma Mountain and other areas. So I don't want to lose track of that path, which is obscured by the trees here. You can't see it, but it's there and it's a nice pathway. Thank you.
Thank you. Great comments. Okay, I don't have any other comment cards for this item, so we will close it and bring it back to the committee for further discussion. Pamela, please.
Yeah, so I'm a little more inclined towards option 1, and part of my reasoning there is I think that there are going to be people who are going to be using a 12-foot path to go southbound, even though they're on the side of the street where the traffic is going northbound. Because I think for some of these other reasons, like making their way down to the brewery that's on that side of the street, the reason the 12-foot is seems more appealing to me is there's a little more flexibility in use. I mean, you can have people overtaking other people, whether they're walking faster or pushing the stroller slower, et cetera. And there could be ped traffic going 2 ways there, in spite of what we might intend. So I'm a little more inclined towards that. I like the 4-foot planter that's separate, and I think that's a nice distinction in that area. So I think despite there being other opportunities to keep cyclists on the path to go southbound, et cetera, I think we might find that you're going to have a number of user groups northbound and southbound on the 12-foot path, and that may not function very well with the other separation. And to the extent we can put something on the pavement that encourages people to keep their speeds down, especially coming up to the railroad crossing and these kinds of things, and for some of the other reasons that were mentioned, when different types of bicycles are likely going to be making difficult maneuvers, I think that'd be very helpful. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Everything that Pamela just said really resonates with me as the public commenter. Thank you for those comments too. It really helps to have people who know the area coming in. I wish Stacy Earle was here, but I'm going to say it to take back to the parks. There's a small little city-owned piece of property that abuts to this, and I just think it's ripe for opportunity to create some sort of a pull for bringing people to the train. There was a time when I thought the new skate park could go there and we could have people riding smart to ride this skate park, a basketball court, I don't know, a pétanque court, but some way to activate that and get more people walking and biking to that as a destination. So I'm just gonna keep standing on my soapbox for that little piece of property. Thanks.
Thank you. Love that idea. Kelly?
Okay, comments. So yeah, I'll reiterate in comment form. If the city can share with SMART an emphasis on thinking through those angular turns, maybe some yield signage if a certain direction should be yielding, but really thinking through so we don't have conflict points. And then thinking about some other solutions that will slow bikes down but not inhibit their movement, like the bars that we talked about. And then just two questions. Bjorn, did you mention a timeline for the city's piece of this? And then, and it's probably in the staff report, so I apologize. And then will there be lighting along Corona Road? Or is that part of the like pedestrian scale lighting? If that is, I'm not sure what the street lighting looks like there.
So for any frontage improvements of this scale, generally, yeah, we do try to underground utilities and provide street lighting, especially when there's aligned with these development projects. So I can double check on those for you, but I believe so that would be included. I actually do not know of the timing. So we'll also report back on that.
I think I accidentally inserted all my comments in my questions, so I'm going to stick with option one and echo everyone else's comments, including, I believe, Robin Graham that wrote in. I appreciated the comments regarding the challenges with the smart crossing onto their pathways in the railway. Thank you. And to Adam, please.
Great, thanks. Bjorn, I just emailed you something. I'm wondering if you could just bring up an image. I was actually thinking, I'm kind of joining and realizing also that having more protection for a multi-use trail, option one, really makes a lot of sense given the truck traffic. I would propose maybe going just a little bit further, especially for the frontage on North McDowell, and thinking about just the flow of people coming out of the SMART station, and how that kind of creates a T a little bit, that flow coming out, and then they hit North McDowell and can go left and can go right. And I don't think there's enough space, but what I was trying to think about was like having something that's almost just ditching the landscape planting basically for that section and just really maximizing the space for people to move. I think there's going to be opportunities for landscaping everywhere, but this section in particular just seems like you really have to fit as many people in there as possible. This was an example that came out of Boulder that was like tall curbs, so kind of half the size a regular kind of highway barrier might be or something, but it just struck me as a cool example, and I don't even know if it's legal in California, but as a way to still feel protected, just another option for us to maybe consider, again, not knowing the legal ramifications, but in this application, just thinking how that could be a nice, trying to incorporate public art too. You can only do so much with bollards to paint them. So this gives a sense of that continuity that you can maybe still provide a little extra level of protection too. So yeah, just to, proposal to say expand that front part, get rid of the landscaping and just try to think of something creative to be able to separate traffic. Because I don't think you can create, I was thinking like a two-way cycle track, but I don't think there's enough space for that. You need way more than that. So just really maximizing that multi-use pathway space.
And that was, sorry, please, can you say again where you were?
Yeah, this was that section in between Corona Road and then the crossing for,
Gotcha.
Yeah, so kind of on the east side of North McDowell, south of Corona Road, north of the train station. And again, this is all kind of tricky to figure out because we don't have the site plans to know where those flows are going to be, but conceptually that makes sense. There's, to simplify it, there'd be people coming out from there. So giving people the most space to move around. That's all.
Thank you. Franklin? Marcia?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I think that's an excellent idea. I am for option one, chiefly because it provides greater safety for bikes and peds, and particularly for kids and for seniors who live in the trailer accommodations across North McDowell. I love the idea. I mean, I very much like the idea and understand the idea of using foliage and greenery as the 4-foot border. But it appeals to me if we could, the idea that we would have 16 feet to work with, that's more what we need, I think, out there. Just as Adam mentioned, you've got people coming off the train. Hopefully there are lots of folks with bicycles, who are going to use our pathways in one place or another. We've got people who are coming in to pick up the train. We can use all the space we can generate. I would love to see that. So option one, but without the foliage strip.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from the committee? Nope. Okay, moving on to number 4, drum roll, review and provide feedback on the draft active transportation project maps. And Bjorn, I believe you are presenting this.
Yes, so thank you. Let me just, toggle around here. Admittedly, I do not know how this is going to go, so we're going to try it though. We had obviously all of you at the open house a while back, and thank you again for helping us collect feedback on the draft active transportation plan maps. So I did want to provide an opportunity for the committee to discuss the maps as a whole. You can be as specific as you'd like with any changes you would like to see to the maps. I'll bring them up on the screen here and move around and add sticky notes. So we'll kind of do it through a virtual format. But I do also want to emphasize that I would also, a couple of you have already sent in some written comments. Thank you for those. Those are very helpful. And likewise for the public, on our active transportation plan webpage, we have a comment form, and as well as my email address, which you can just send comments to directly. So I have gotten a handful of emails from community members with very detailed feedback. So just looking for more of the same tonight. And again, no pressure. If don't feel like this is the last chance to add comments. I just wanted to provide another opportunity to do this, and so that we can get as many comments as possible in our next round of map revisions. So with that, I will, I'm happy to pull the map up and we can. I've got 3 different maps that we can look at. We've got the proposed bike network. We've got the proposed. We've got the sidewalk gaps and trail network, and then oops, I must have skipped one. Yeah, and then just the trail network. So I'm trying to think of what would be. I think we can just kind of treat this as a workshop item. We'll start with the committee. We can move around the map. I'll toggle around, add comments if you came prepared with any tonight, or we can. And once you're through, we can do the same with the public. But again, please send me written comments. Don't feel like we need to cover everything tonight if you still haven't had an opportunity to do a detailed review. I'll also say I've gotten a lot of questions and comments around the bikeway types that are shown here. With if I'm seeing an on-street bike lane, does that mean it's a class 2 or a class 4? And the goal with this map was to keep it as simple as possible, and basically would go through that exercise of determining class 2 versus class 4 with project implementation. So we have always envisioned including a statement with this plan that the city will strive to provide all ages and abilities bikeways. Obviously, that's our goal whenever we are implementing a new bikeway project or upgrading an existing bikeway, is to make sure it meets the NACTO all ages and abilities design criteria, which was attached or linked in the staff report. So just to try to simplify the map here and avoid that, going down, drilling down on the cross sections of every single street in Petaluma and figuring out whether a class 4 is feasible, whether it requires parking removal. Just trying to not do that here tonight, but we are also happy. We've gotten a lot of comments about where people think protected bike lanes are needed, and generally, I think we have a pretty good sense of the criteria that people are applying when they provide those comments. And it's consistent with what NACTO outlines. The busier a street is, the greater the need for physical protection and separation. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that before we started here.
Should we open public comment and then have a discussion, or I should move to questions right now?
I think we can try. Yeah, let's start with questions from the committee, and then we can go public comment, and then
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Marja, I'll start with you. Do you have questions first off?
I have lots of comments, not lots, I have several comments regarding each map, but it's more, did we think this through? It's really not a neighborhood greenway, it's this kind of a roadway, that kind of thing. So I don't think that's appropriate here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we can do that during discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is only 7:58.
Franklin?
So one question, this gets in a little bit detail, but I'm wondering if you can, so I'm looking at sort of this, the area that's on Lakeville. I'll try to describe it. So if you can go to the intersection of Lakeville and McDowell, right there. So just to the right of that, you see, so where that is, that's a bridge that goes over a creek, and that's the trail that you see coming into that. That's a trail that goes, along that creek. Is there anything planned there? And what is that?
Yeah, so these black dots represent some form of crossing or intersection improvement, and that has been a frequent request through the social pinpoint map and several comments at the open house for some sort of Adobe Creek trail crossing at that location to facilitate because you have trails on both sides of the street. It follows the creek. It leads right into Schollenberger Park. It's a logical connection. Whether that would be at grade and, it would require some sort of either a new signal or what's called a pedestrian hybrid beacon. It definitely needs something robust if it is across Lakeville. We could look at the feasibility of going under Lakeville, similar to what we're looking at with the Lynch Creek Trail crossing of North McDowell. Just having kind of eyeballed it, doesn't look feasible, but something that we need to explore either way. We'll obviously, that's a Caltrans road, so we'll have to engage Caltrans. But yeah, that's been a very popular request.
Yeah, so I think, just being really familiar with that area, I think adding lights on Lakeville there would be tough, given the fact that, just a few feet, there's you've got lights on both sides of it. Being familiar with that area, you may want to go, if you haven't seen it, you may want to look at it. I think there may be the potential to go under that bridge. So, I don't think it would be a big lift to build, that trail to go down underneath it. Aside from that, any other comments that I have? I was just curious what you were, what the thinking was there. But I'll send any other comments or questions that I have by email.
And yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. One of the things we did do is we called out trail crossing improvements pretty much anywhere where a trail crosses a major roadway. And I'm even seeing a couple, like there's the Eli Boulevard trail crossing for Washington Creek Trail. That's one that definitely needs to be, I'm just going to add it right now. It's a note because I'm just catching that, yeah, our goal is to provide seamless connectivity with all of the trails and make sure that when you hit a major arterial road, we want those connections to be seamless. Yeah.
Adam?
No questions.
No questions for me either. Kelly?
Just a question, clarification. So if on the envisioned bike network map, the first one, for example, Petaluma Boulevard is a class 2 at the moment, and there's not going to be any delineation on this map to say that is woefully inadequate on Petaluma Boulevard North, I'm referring to. But so this would work in tandem with some kind of reference to a NACTO standard that it should be more than that.
Yes, yeah, and we will also be so right now we're just kind of doing this mapping exercise to identify all of the improvements that are needed, and that we will be looking at facilities like, Petaluma Boulevard North is considered an existing bike facility because it's an existing class 2, but we know that a street of that volume and speed should be a class 4. So that would be identified as a project and then kind of put in the hopper for prioritization, and we'll apply all the criteria to. So yeah, that's a separate exercise. For now, we're just again trying to keep the map as simple as possible to identify the bike network at the basis for the network, and then we'll go through that exercise.
And I think there just might be a very small typo on the sidewalk gap one. The third map, it says on one side of the street. So I think there's just a repeat word. Very minor. Just saw it. On the third, the sidewalk gap map. And then it says sidewalk gap. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Can I I do have a question now. Based on this envisioned trail maps, so there are there prioritized projects currently? Or I know like funding comes up and that changes, but do we have like a list of prioritized projects?
The existing prioritization is done by city council through the adoption of the annual CIP, capital improvement project budget. So any projects that are currently in there have kind of been identified as a priority in some form by the community and city council. The active transportation plan will have its own prioritization criteria applied, which Fair and Pierce has presented on a couple of times to kind of get feedback on what that criteria looks like, or what criteria we apply. So this plan will generate its own priority project list, and then us as staff and city council will have the benefit of that list to inform future budgets and figure out where we're which projects we're prioritizing from the active transportation plan. But if we're going off of the existing bicycle and pedestrian master plan,
We don't know.
we really don't
So
have that.
after this plan is approved and adopted by council, then there will be priority within their budget.
Well, they would still, that's still subject to their, they have that discretion every year when they adopt the budget to they ultimately decide what goes in it. So this will be a resource for them
Okay,
and for
thank
us
you.
as staff. Yeah.
I'll probably ask you this question in a couple more months. I'll probably
It's okay.
want to know. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, Brian.
Just a couple questions. I mean, some of the most controversial streets right now are essentially undecided. So can you say what the process is for, or like what you'd like us to offer in terms of facility type to be determined pending corridor study? Some of those are like where I might have my strongest opinions.
So great question. Right now we have one on Corona Road. We've got the narrower stretch of Payran. We've got Bodega. We've got Washington, the narrow stretch of Lakeville, and then we've got Mountain View. So yeah, really all of those, there was a very high level kind of just feasibility analysis. I don't even want to call it an analysis. It was basically myself and Jeff Rubendahl with our knowledge of the constrained widths of each of those roadways, saying we really don't know, how we would get a bike facility in here without some major changes to the roadway configuration. So it's probably something that warrants a study, but that's certainly open to feedback and from PBAC and the general public. We've gotten a lot of comments about East Washington Street, and it is helpful to know, I think, where people would like to see us, which of those studies is a priority. Do you agree that a study is necessary? Just tell us what you think, and we will try to make sense of it.
Second question, it's not easy to tell what if Hopper Street is included, and I know this body, the council, has raised this, but I don't see Hopper Street on there. Is it on there? I guess, and if not, you can forecast
Yeah.
some of my
So
comments.
this line, sorry. This is Hopper Street right here along the tracks, and we are envisioning some sort of class 1 facility along there. Whether it would require, whether it could be done on city right-of-way, private right-of-way, smart right-of-way, that's all subject to, each of these projects is going to be subject, obviously, to some level of design and engineering and all sorts of other approvals. So what we are going to do is we are going to pull out any project that would potentially involve another agency, especially SMART, and kind of sit down with them and walk through each of these and understand their concerns. And we're going to be, for each of the projects, noting any, giving it a feasibility rating. So anything that seems potentially challenging or maybe requiring right-of-way acquisition, obviously would receive a lower feasibility rating than something where we've got a really wide street and we know all it would take is to narrow travel lanes and we've got a new bikeway. So yeah, that will go into it.
Great. Those are all my questions.
Okay, are there any other clarifying questions? Okay, then we will open this for public comment. The public is invited to make comments on this item. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. If you haven't done so already, please fill out a speaker card and bring it to the clerk. Thank you. And clerk, did you receive public comments posted online prior to this meeting?
There was one public comment received.
Thank you. And my first comment card is from David Felix.
Hello. Just a few kind of questions, and I'm sorry if this is kind of backtracking. I wasn't at the public meeting, so just trying to come up to speed here. But we just talked about it, so I was just kind of fresh in my mind here. There's nothing identified between the new SMART project you were just talking about at Corona and McDowell up to Eli Road, and that seemed like it might be kind of a missing piece. It's a half mile, it looks like, and there's elementary and junior high school up there. So also a narrow, dangerous road. So I'd like to see you guys add that one to the list somehow. I guess I'm finding the delineation between the orange and the light green lines kind of confusing. When you've presented things in the past, you've talked about all ages and abilities and having like protected, and like the fact that the light green is painted on pavement with or without buffers seems like a kind of an important distinction. It would be helpful to know, like, are they safe for all age and abilities or not? So like kind of where you're drawing that distinction, I think is maybe a little confusing or hard to tell. Like, is it going to be all ages and abilities road or not? Also, just kind of some of the roads in here, I guess it's a little surprising or confusing. Like I Street is identified as orange as a small residential street for bikes and vehicles to share the road. I guess I was surprised to see that. So it's hard to kind of tie all the pieces together. I'm looking at the second map, and it looks kind of barren to get from, one. So I'm like trying to think, like envision, like taking what's on slide one and figure out like, how do you like connect all these straggling like trails together, which I think is kind of the goal. So it's a little hard to make the mental leap from slide one to slide two and try to figure out, like, are some of these light green ones going to be all ages and abilities or not? So I don't know if there's a way of making that more clear. And I'll stand on my soapbox again if I can, just to remind you all about the 2030 Vision Zero and climate goals, and just to try to keep that in mind for everybody, that if y'all are serious about doing that, it's we're almost in 2024 here. And to try to make sure that as many of these roads as you can make all ages and abilities accessible as possible is important. If kids can't ride on the road safely, then parents can't get out of their cars. And that's kind of what we're all trying to do, especially with e-bikes and all the other options. I just got an e-bike a few days ago and ready to get rid of our second car. That's a great way to get around town if only we didn't have to worry about getting run over. So thank you all very much. I think it's great. I'm really glad you're all doing it. Just keep up the good work, and let's try to make it so we don't have to be in our cars all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Pete?
Thank you. I just want to say very briefly, echoing what Dave just said, again, reading through the greenhouse gas reduction blueprint, it talks about if we are to come close to meeting our 2030 carbon neutrality goal as a city, we will need to get mode shift on the order of 50, 60, 70%, getting people out of their single occupant vehicles onto public transit and active transportation. It seems to me in order for that to happen, we need to have a complete and integrated network for other forms of mobility. And what I'm seeing here looks to me like a step in the right direction, but there are lots and lots of gaps. And a mobility network is only as functional as its weakest link. And in my viewing, we need to tighten up the gaps and make it a complete network. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. I don't have any other comment cards. That closes public comment on this item and brings it back to the committee for discussion. And I will start with Marcia, please.
Okay, looking at, I guess it's now time for this kind of thing. Looking at the trail network map, which is map on the second page. I was just out on Gossage walking with a friend, and before I looked at this map, and I looked at the map just to kind of track where my friend and I had walked, and I was quite surprised to see the fact that Gossage is listed as a trail, and Gossage is anything but a trail. It's a class 2, the way I look at it, but it certainly isn't a trail. Private ownership on both sides of that roadway might make it very difficult to buy the land that you need in order to build a trail. So that was one thing I noted. Looking on map number 3.
Sorry, maybe I can just respond or
Sure.
address your comments individually. So this connection you see here, it was envisioned actually in the 2008 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan as part of the rim trail system.
Right.
And that's so that's not an existing trail. It's a vision, and it will obviously happen in a piecemeal fashion, I think, over time, if at all, or maybe some sections do come to exist. But so that just kind of skirts the whole western boundary of the city. That's why you see that we carried over all of the projects from the 2008 plan. So
No, I recognize that. It's just the way what you're asking us to do tonight is.
Yes, yeah.
What do we do? What do we say? Like Mr. Felix, I also recognize that since this is a trail network, we need to update the area that we just talked about, the area between North McDowell and Corona and the new subdivision that's going in along with the SMART train. That whole area needs to be updated. I don't think we had that listed as a trail in any fashion.
Yes, you're right. Along the frontages, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then looking at, let's see, on the sidewalk gaps and envisioned trail network, let's see. Oh, we just talked about that one. There are a few areas in here that suggest there is no sidewalk, and I beg to differ that there is a semblance of sidewalk, but that's something I could list out for you and send it to you rather than going through it and
That sounds
taking the
good.
time of
Yeah,
the committee.
that'd be helpful. Yep.
And the same thing would go for sidewalks or for the map reading that says there's no sidewalk at all on either side when there is, so that I can include as well. Let's see what else. And again, everything else on that map is basically about existing sidewalks that I either think are there or I think are not there. So that's really all I have at this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Franklin?
Yeah, just one sort of general comment on along Eli Boulevard. So, and I've made this comment too on Lakeville, just north of Caulfield. There's a between Caulfield and the train station. There's a couple of crossings on that road on Lakeville that are just there's no lights. It's just white lines painted on the ground. Cars are driving 45 miles an hour, and if anyone steps in the street, it's a serious issue. Much along Eli is the same way. Eli is a wide road. There's a fair amount of crossings all up and down Eli that really there's no lights or signals or anything along that line. So as we, continue to, just sort of think about building this out, if the comments haven't sort of drawn your attention to that, I just wanted to make that comment, and that's all I have.
All right. So let's see. First comment is actually kind of a cartographic comment about the first map. I think the green bikeways. Sorry, it's going slow. What are they? The on-street bike lanes. I think part of what's challenging in looking at the map is all of the green parks also. You don't really get to see the green bikeways pop out as much. So you might want to just lose or severely transparent size the parks or do something. And I think, what comes to mind for this map is trying to get the Envision Bicycle Network is trying to get clarity, I think, in part of the description, which was pointed out, with or without barriers or buffers, lends just that uncertainty around what is kind of that complete protected bike network. That's the map that I essentially want to see. And I know it's a combination of some of the green and some of the blue, but my eye can't catch it, but it can focus in on areas and start to see where some of those gaps are. And I think that's maybe just something, a mapping exercise or an update or something to be able to actually show where that is. And I think what came to mind was from our last PBAC meeting around the improvements along Maria Drive, and Mackenzie as well too, I think, as they connect. And just thinking about, going by Safeway and going across 101, how there's that route there that has, kind of a mix of greenway and bike lane. And I think going down D Street further. And I think what I want to be able to see in a map is just know where is that complete network that is protected, that you can have, a 3-year-old ride their bike all the way through. And it's just, still hard to really visualize that. But I think that example that I just gave of Maria and Mackenzie and D Street further down, I think that's just the idea of being able to do something visually with this map and getting definition also on what's protected or not, to be able to say, okay, where are the gaps to make that, one single color just showing where that complete network would be. That's, I think, what we really have to work towards, of just having a clear vision of where that will be, and then, addressing those pinch points, I agree, that need further study. I think that makes a lot of sense, even along Petaluma Boulevard, and around downtown. That feels like, seeing those as greenways and nothing fully protected gets away from this idea of being able to have, people ride to these major attractions from SMART or from their homes, their businesses. So that's, I think, just the big high-level comment. I just have one trail comment looking at Casa Grande Road, and what's not on here is, but I think might be a potential attraction, is the Vallejo's Adobe over on Adobe Road. So thinking, I think that might go out of Petaluma's jurisdiction too. But I love the idea of being able to have someone come to Petaluma on the Smart Station, be able to bike around on a complete protected bike network, see all the attractions, and never have to clog the streets. It's just like, that's so within our reach, I think. And so, yeah, Adobe's Vallejo is really cool. So throw that on the list. In terms of intersection improvements, I feel like there's a criteria maybe that we can just look across the map and make some additions. One is around the Smart Station. So I know we're talking about Corona, but I think for the downtown Smart Station, D Street and then Washington or East Washington, I think both need a lot of help in trying to figure out how to facilitate the arrival and distribution of bikes just kind of when the train comes. I'm part of that. So it's just kind of a lot of flow and figuring out how to handle that bike flow with traffic. And I think there's some current things and long-term, short-term solutions and some longer-term solutions that we can think about for that. And then the other criteria was just all the on-off ramps in those intersections. I noticed one was missing on Lakeville Highway on the east side. That one's just like, there's nothing there. You've driven by there, tried to walk that for that on that northern side along Lakeville Highway. And yeah, I think that should probably conclude my comments. I feel like doing that mapping exercise, though, feels like can address a lot of the gaps that we're talking about of just knowing where would it make sense to convert one of these greenways to something that's identified as something that's more protected. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Adam. I don't have a lot to add here, but I'm looking at the bus, like transfer station by the Safeway, and I think that we could do a better job there. Like, we have on-street bike lanes. I'm also thinking about the pedestrian experience. Like, I do think we give a lot of thought to the movements of bike and pedestrian on the Smart train coming and going, but I'm hoping that we'll have better bus use and more bus use or micromobility. It would be great if we had that area improved. And I'm looking in that area, like, I'm not sure if this trail has a name, but it's going from Washington Street up to Garfield, like Greenbrier and the Addison Ranch apartments. And then it drops people right onto Washington. And it seems like it would be better if if that's still there, I think that's fine. But to kind of divert traffic or help people go on Maria towards Lucchese and get on the trails, or go to Mackenzie and take the overpass, the walking bridge, there would be helpful rather than just having them land on Washington Street. So I guess that would be a bit of a wayfinding. And those are all my comments. Thank you. Kelly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this one is technically private property, so might need to unless maybe you know, Bjorn, but I'm talking about along the Lynch Creek Trail, there is a path that goes behind some townhomes. This is north of Madison, so on the east side. Oh yeah, Madison's over there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Up here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So between Sonoma Mountain and Maria, that section of the Lynch Creek Trail right there. So on the other side, the south side, there is a trail that parallels it. It goes behind, I used to walk it a lot, and it goes behind a complex. There's no signage that says it's private, but might want to verify that before we put something on. But it is a nice little paved path that's really pretty. There's a lot of blackberries back there.
Is it sidewalk width or is it like a
Yeah.
multi-use trail?
It's sidewalk width.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's probably not show, even if it is public, it wouldn't show here because we're not marking out every sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
We were trying to mark, really all you're seeing here are trails that are accessible to people walking and biking, or that are kind of designated for walking and biking. So if you feel that it's got some
I feel like
utility
it's a
as a
trail,
multi-use facility.
I don't think anybody would be biking on it.
Okay.
That's more for walking.
We'll look at it and see if
Yeah.
it's, yeah, okay.
I won't be offended if you don't add it. And then I think on the sidewalk gap, the third one, we can remove most of what's highlighted for North McDowell since those gaps are closed now.
You're right.
So that's exciting. You can check something off. And my last question is, I know we had a public comment on this. Will the comments and suggestions be incorporated into what you're doing now?
Yes.
The comment we had from Robin? Okay.
Yeah, we've got a big folder of all of the comments that we've received. So, and it's helpful actually to have all of this archived for grant applications. I'm learning. So, we even kind of looked at, with the social pinpoint, at least it was pretty easy to identify which corridors received the most comments. And my recollection was that D Street was one of, if not our top source of comments on the social pinpoint map for bike ped improvements, mostly between downtown and Lakeville, and the Lakeville intersection received a lot of comments on its own. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Brian?
Awesome. Sorry for not sending my comments in sooner. So on Western Avenue, I know there's some crossing issues there at Fair Street that's not listed. That we've talked about. Bodega Avenue crossings at Bodega and Upham and or Park and Baker. Both those are pretty treacherous. Echo the comment about Corona Road. Then I don't know where we capture this, but I just want to double down on the undergrounding the utilities on D Street between Oyster Cove and Lakeville. There's like 3 poles there, and just making sure that that gets in every plan that we possibly have. Bodega crossings. Agree with the public comment about I Street being probably labeled wrong. There is a gap on West Street that I think is worth calling out, where it doesn't go down to Petaluma Boulevard. I think that's important because there's no way for people on West Street to, it's like kind of a hill to go from West Street toward downtown. So you might want to go down to Petaluma Boulevard or go down to Keller or something. And you're not going to go to Magnolia if you're going to go to the fairgrounds, for example. And so I think we need to continue that West Street one down to Petaluma Boulevard.
Yeah, so we actually looked at this neighborhood closely because of the hills and the opportunities created by the grid. So I'm excited that you brought it up because this is a chance to kind of talk through it a little bit. So we added the so we got the 5th Street neighborhood greenway comes up here. You need some intersection improvements at Washington to get people across onto Keller. Keller is one of the more is a pretty gradual uphill up to Prospect. And then from that point, so if you're envisioning a connection that gets around this really congested area of downtown at Washington and Petaluma Boulevard North, you would use Keller, turn right on Prospect, turn left on Kentucky, which is again one of the more gradual hills, and then you've got the new signal at Oak and the new trail down at the North River Apartments. So that's one way to kind of connect through that area. And then we were envisioning that if people are biking anywhere sort of up to the Cherry Valley area, they would use Keller Street, slightly lower traffic than Keokuk, a little more gradual, less hilly. Basically trying to not force people to bike on these steep hills up towards Oak Hill. But yeah, point well taken that we don't have a connection on this section of West. That's a really steep, really steep hill though. So I'm a little hesitant to, like, we left out, Prospect, for example. We're trying to run people through this.
What do you mean?
We're trying to run people through this neighborhood north-south as much as possible and then use Prospect as the primary kind of east-west, except for that last block down to the boulevard. That was kind of the thinking behind this. We could, Kentucky is pretty gradual.
Kentucky's
So
a great street.
We could filter
be on,
people down
actually.
to this, do the same thing here and send people down. I just don't know where that hill, like, really, it seems like it's steep all the way up to Keller, but yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess my bigger point is, like I said already, there's going to be a lot more people going to the fairgrounds. And I just am thinking, like, when I look at these maps, I think to myself, like, if I'm riding to go play pickleball at the fairgrounds, like, what route am I going to take from different places, right? So I just think there's a lot of different things to think about with that, getting people to the center of the city safely, because it really hasn't been a destination to this point. Like, the only reason you'd go there is to go to Target, and you're probably driving, right? But there's going to be new reasons to, walk and ride your bike there. I don't know how you capture the Lakeville to Payran on D Street, like making it a one-way street and sort of implementing that vision, but I'd love to see that put in there.
Sorry, that was the gap between on Lakeville.
It's not really a gap that's listed in here, but I don't think I think it could be a trail. I think it could be a one-way. I think D Street from Lakeville to Payran could be one way.
Oh, I see. This section.
Yeah, I
as
think it
opposed
could
to-
be, and it could become a better path and just stronger connection there.
And that was fun fact about that. That was actually envisioned as Petaluma's first neighborhood bike boulevard. Now we're calling them neighborhood greenways, but yeah. So that was probably a project that was ahead of its time when it was originally proposed.
Right, and with the fairgrounds,
yeah,
it's now being a destination. I think it might be worth dusting off. And then just in general, I think when you think about, like, some of the, our public commenters touched on it, but when we look at, like, in Sonoma Mountain, right, for example, these wide roads that are 2 lanes and trying to get to carbon neutrality, we have to ask ourselves, like, are we at peak car right now? And if not, when are we? Right, like, people are going to move here, they're going to have cars, but also people are getting e-bikes and ditching cars. And so, I don't know if there's any sort of, like, policy assumption that you can make that, like, we're going to be transitioning all of our 2-way streets to 1-way, or 2-lane roads to 1-way or 1 lane. Washington, obviously, that's like, you're putting a dagger in the heart of car culture. Like, if we really want to do something, like more than a connected network of bike lanes, like making Washington a toll road with one lane in each direction is what's going to like get people out of their car in this city. But I just think some of these areas lend themselves to like maybe a specific plan or something, but we're seeing, like tall buildings going up on Petaluma Boulevard. We're going to continue to see the build out of Petaluma Boulevard out towards the old Lucky's and the old boat store and things like that. Those are probably going to become, like dense housing, I would think. And so making sure that we're thinking about like coming up with a pretty grand vision for Petaluma Boulevard, Washington, if it gets redeveloped, if there's pieces of that, like it's really important that we, that our plan really think about what types of development's going to be going in there. And I'm not see like when I just look at the map, I don't see like the future land use that we're striving for. And that's something that sort of is like missing from this whole discussion really.
And I would say too, I think that conversation will really be driven in the general plan and especially the kind of the land use element of the general plan, but also the mobility element, which is obviously looking at transportation as a whole, not just bike ped, but I've seen tables for the general plan that clearly outline which the corridors where lane reductions are seem feasible just based on traffic volume, where it would really you could implement a lane reduction and not see any adverse congestion impacts. And it's a lot of it's the Casa Grande, the Casa Grande's Eli, Snow Mountain Parkway. It's kind of your Rainier. It's the those Caulfield, the bigger roads more on the east side where the traffic volumes are just much lower than and don't warrant that many lanes. So that I think that will be more part of the general plan discussion. Something that goes beyond our ATP, but that we can certainly with this plan, react to and try to update this as needed in response to some of those bigger conversations.
Cool. And then final points. Madison and Payran and Lynch Creek Trail. There's those. I think we identified the Lynch Creek Trail intersection there with on Payran. That's an issue. I'd like to see that flagged. And then I hear a lot. This is my district, so I've been talking to people, and there's a lot of people talking about Madison right now. Madison, McKinley, all the traffic issues around there. So I'm just not seeing the number of intersection issues or something like that I'd want to see around that school.
I'll have something to share on that shortly in my next item.
I can't wait.
Thank you, Brian. Pamela?
Got a couple of comments. I'd like to see more connections to like the rim trail. So the one that's being shown on Lorman and in the Sunny Slope area. I'd like to see what we expect in terms of connections either on street or through other properties that have yet to be developed. So, we're showing it there, but we're not showing how folks can access it mid-segment. So I'm not sure if we've thought about, whether there are streets that are just going to get us there or whether we need some more spurs that should be shown to make it more accessible. I made some comments earlier about like the Wallenberg Way and Oak Knoll Court. Seemed to me that at some point in time in past bike committee meetings, we even conditioned some of those subdivisions to provide access to trail at the top. And maybe that something happened after bike committee looked at it, but I think to show a rim trail without showing how people are going to get to it, whether it's something that's going to happen at the corner of Grevillea and or some of those places, I think that helps. If someone looks at the map, they can say, oh yeah, we envisioned that folks would be able to not just walk up I Street to get on it, but could go through a different area. Also, the river trail. So it seems to me like we ought to have some trail suggestions about how people would get down to the river trail through, for example, some of the new subdivisions that we recently saw. So, in the core, where just a couple of meetings ago, we were talking about new development in that area. So I don't see connections from like the Smart Trail down through, yeah, exactly right in there. Can we represent something in that area to suggest that we're also anticipating that there would be through trail, through either multi-use or whatever we can come up with? I'd like that to be kind of suggestive. I also kind of feel like we're not really emphasizing what we want to achieve as boldly as we should, similar to what some of the other committee members have talked about. I kind of feel like we're being a little fuzzy between, where do we really want the protected bike ways to be to get people to move around? And if we're showing some as orange and some as green, it almost feels to me like we're not being clear enough about what we expect. Like, which is going to get the emphasis? Where's the money going to go? Which roads are really going to be narrowed? And this last bit of the conversation about land use, I think that's it. It seems like, okay, what's going to happen along Petaluma Boulevard? What's going to happen on some of our, more dense corridors where we are expecting more housing? It seems like this needs to take in my mind, a bolder stance as to what we want to achieve. And I feel it's a little wishy-washy with the way we're representing it. And I know these are hard choices. But if this gets adopted like this, it feels kind of, it's not bold enough to get those climate action goals achieved in that period of time. And we know how long it took us to go from the last bike ped plan to this. So I think this is the opportunity. Yeah, those are my comments.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've heard that pretty loud and clear from the committee and the public that you'd like to see the actual bikeway types called out. So we will do our best to capture those based on what we know of each of these corridors, based on traffic volume, speed, et cetera. Call out whatever would be the recommended NACTO facility, and we can definitely do that. So that next map revision, we'll have the bikeway classes called out. Yeah.
Are there any other final comments? Yes.
Yeah, actually comment and a question. The comment was about West Street and the hills, and it was kind of putting the future goggles on and just thinking about micromobility and electric bikes. It's like, I don't have one, but I imagine hills are going to be a lot easier on them. So just still thinking about that connectivity, especially, yeah. I live very close to the fairgrounds, so just thinking about how that's a center point of potential activity. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that's lots of fun too. So looking forward to more stuff in the future, but drawing those connections is exciting. And then the other, I guess the question would be, is it possible to have this the shapefile shared to kind of do that analysis I was talking about of like looking at that complete connected network? I think that would, for me at least, help kind of fill in some of the gaps in terms of recommendations and stuff along those lines. So
yeah. Since you are a GIS person, we can send you that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. And that's all.
Bjorn, will this come before us again, before council? I know you wanted to.
Yeah. So the plan as a whole will go in draft form to PBAC, Planning Commission. We've talked about taking it to RMPC. That's the Recreation, Music, and Parks Commission. And then so kind of do the committee commission roadshow for review and comments prior to going to council for adoption. Yes.
And I think at some point you said you were hoping to get this in front of council early 2024. That's
It would,
still-
well, it won't go there until it's gone through all these other stages first. So
Yeah.
it's probably
Summer, maybe?
spring,
Okay.
mid 24 at this point. But we will be, our goal is to try to get priority projects out of this for a grant application for the next cycle of the active transportation program. So, and that call for projects will be out in about spring of 2024. So, and I think those are due in the summer. I'm looking at Adam because he works for SCTA. Yeah, so the goal is to, that's a big, I think that's a big driver right now, at least to identify priorities. Even if the plan hasn't been formally adopted by council, it would be nice to know with some certainty what our priority projects are. And then our plan is to submit a whole package of priority projects and hopefully get them all awarded and then be able to get the real key gaps closed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm not a GIS person, but I love maps and looking at maps, and I think we all do. And I just want to appreciate that this has been challenging, I think, for everyone, and you included, to figure out how to like make this map and make it succinct and digestible and include as much information as we're trying to do. And there's just no perfect way to do that. And it's been hard. And I want to appreciate your comment, Pete, that the plan is only as strong as its weakest link. I think I like to be an optimist, but that's a really important and pragmatic way to move forward from here. And yeah, I just appreciate all the work that has been done on this. And I look forward to your analysis. So we will move to committee comment now. During committee comment, members are invited to briefly share updates relevant to this committee, including liaison reports from other city bodies, and make requests for future agenda items. Dialogue between members should be limited to clarifying questions and answers. There will be no public comment on this item. And I will start with Marja.
So this is committee comment, right? Okay. Yeah, I have one comment to make. I've been attending meetings in Santa Rosa where we have been talking about a lot of the things that we talk about here. And I was pleasantly surprised at our last meeting that one of the gals presented the fact that bike share is coming back. That was that, you all remember that? I think our ad hoc committee was finally disbanded because we were waiting forever for this bike share program. But it sounds like the bike share program right now, they are finishing up the contract, and they are looking at a 2-year pilot program with, again, 300 bikes, which hasn't changed. That part hasn't changed since the first iteration of this. And maybe it's time where we need to take a look at what we want Petaluma's bike share to look like. And maybe we need to reform the ad hoc committee with the transit or what have you. But I think, Adam, am I wrong? They were talking about this might be up and going by the end of the summer, 2024?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So we've got to get our eggs in order and get back to whatever we had before the hiatus happened. So anyway, that's what I'm reporting. Thank you.
Franklin? Adam?
Yes. Let's see. So yeah, exciting that bike share is coming. That's right, Marge. It's ideally looking at the summertime. I think there's discussions right now around kind of branding. The name is out there, kind of getting tossed around, and it's a negotiation kind of between Marin and Sonoma. But I think people saw that list, kind of Redwood Rides, North Bay Bikes, something along those lines. Feels like it's going to be, probably speaking ahead of myself, but something that, yeah, should be cool and hopefully give us an identity, you know, for where we live. So that's exciting. And yeah, I think I'll conclude my comments with that.
This is slightly unrelated, but I'll just share that essentially my kids and I have started a little public, I don't know, curiosity project that we've called Familiar Strangers. And we have a little cart on the back of our cargo bike, and we do a pop-up coffee stand. And we've been going around to different neighborhoods, and I bring the ATP maps, and we just sort of talk to people about their experience and like what would it be like to have a food truck here or a coffee shop. And some people really like it. Some people say like, good luck with your business, miss, and don't really understand. But we have fun. My kids have experienced a lot of different parks, and it's just been an interesting experiment. And I would be interested in just using Familiar Strangers to facilitate any conversations within city projects and et cetera. It's been fun and a good learning experience and way to connect with people. But that's all I have to add. Thank you. Kelly.
I love that, and it sounds like a podcast title. Very, very briefly, is there a plan for our ATP ad hoc to meet again? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'll look for an email on that. And then a request. There are a lot of inconvenient bollards along the Corona Creek Trail. Is it possible we could put in a work order to get some of those taken out? Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Perfect. That's it. Thanks.
Council has not met many times recently, but I do have some things to report out on. The overlay, which has been kind of controversial and in the social media news recently, was pulled. The applicant pulled it and continued it to some future date. I'm not sure when. We had a nice celebration for the new smart station groundbreaking. I got to hold my first golden shovel. It was pretty cool. There was a Know Before You Grow event with a group called Not Just Bikes, and like one of the leading urban economists named Joe Minicozy, talking about the economics of sprawl versus infill development. If y'all are interested in urban economics the way that I am, I would encourage you to check out that. The lighted boat parade is this Saturday, so walk or roll on down. I'd be interested in a scooter share at some point. I saw an image, I haven't experienced it yet, but I saw an image of an elevated crosswalk going onto a freeway on-ramp up in Windsor. I thought that was pretty interesting, and just sort of a way to like force drivers to slow the hell down and really kind of yield. I thought that was an interesting thing to share. And then and then you're going to talk about it in your next thing, but on the Mackenzie, I'm really excited to see the stuff taken off of the Mackenzie at the bottom of the ramp. I'm just wondering if there's like some like simple ramp that we can make going off there, or maybe I can just go make it myself or something. I don't know. It doesn't seem that hard, but it would be nice to not have to hit the bottom of that thing and then turn right immediately. And then the final thing, I've mentioned the fairgrounds a bunch, and that's because all of the tenant leases are now extended for 3 years. We're going to be hopefully finalizing the agreement with the 4th District Ag Association to keep putting on the fairgrounds or the fair for another 3 years at least. And so all of that is basically all the things we said we were going to do on the fairgrounds are we've reached a milestone, and we'll be getting the keys to the property on January 1st. And as part of that, there's been all kinds of talk about what kinds of things can we do there. So ideas welcome. Here's a few that I know are percolating. There's a group that is working to bring a BMX track to the infield of the Petaluma Speedway. So that would turn a use that's used 25 or 30 nights a year into something that's used 250 days a year, and bringing youth to the center of our city, and obviously driving demand for safe routes to the fairgrounds. So something I'm pretty excited about, and I have been personally involved in that one. There is multiple different conversations moving in parallel about doing like Four Seasons pickleball pop-up in the expo hall that's never used. We'll be getting it back in January. It'll probably be raining, and there's an opportunity to just get people in there and using the place. Some more future-looking ones that I thought were pretty interesting: a climbing wall on the back of the Speedway bleachers. But just, I think, like, there's a ton of really exciting opportunities where we don't have to lose a damn thing, but we can like really activate that space. And it's like having a big giant ball of clay. And I think for the bike ped nerds in the city, thinking about how to get there and thinking about all the things we can do to activate it, it just is really an exciting opportunity. So that's it.
Thank you. And it's slow the fast down, Brian, not slow the hell down. Pamela.
Something like 6 weeks ago, I was down in LA when they closed the Arroyo Seco Parkway. It was like 7 or 8 miles long. And it was incredible. They had running races. You had every form of rolling transportation. There were so many people out. There were food trucks. The city had a presence. And it's like the Ciclovia on steroids. I mean, it was just, people were so excited. Lots of families came down. And so it just gives me this idea that what if we closed, Sonoma Mountain Parkway or an Eli or something like that, and just encouraged everyone to come out for some limited period of time. I think that this was closed for maybe 5 or 6 hours or something like that, so they could have real running races and everyone enjoy themselves. But it was so energizing to see everybody doing their own thing at very different paces, but everyone having a great time. So I just wanted to mention, and I realize there's a lot more people down there, and there's a lot more opportunities for people to get around when you close something. But it's just an interesting idea about, whatever, East Washington or, something that would let people have a different experience of a corridor like that. So I just wanted to share that. That was fun.
Thank you. Next is staff
Sorry,
comment.
one quick thing I forgot to mention also was a request, I guess, I don't think it's been mentioned, but for a presentation, one that John Tribb's Peak Gang and myself have been putting together on micromobility. So I've given that at the SCTA PBAC recently, so it's primed and ready to go. So just a lot of helpful, relevant data from the Micromobility USA conference, kind of notes, impressions, technology, policy implications that I think kind of can help inform the ATP quite a bit. So definitely in terms of timeliness, I think it makes sense to kind of push that to the top over like the Petaluma River Parkway or something like that. So just wanted to mention that.
Sounds good. Thanks. I've got that in my list for the last slide here. But good to know that it's already ready to go, and good points about the timeliness. All right, so I will run through the updates. So as Councilmember Barnacle highlighted, our crews recently got out and cleaned out that entrance to the the Mackenzie overcrossing, and yes, it still does need a ramp. So we will hopefully try to figure that out. Obviously, anytime you start doing concrete work, it's a little bit dicey, but we are aware of that need. And our Safe Streets nomination program is my inbox is on fire right now. I think we get 2 of those every hour at least, it feels like. So that's our program where we are asking residents to call out areas where they'd like to see traffic calming or other safety improvements. And as of December 1st, we'd received an average of 7.5 nominations per day, 369. It's definitely at 400 now. And there's a URL where people can go ahead and nominate. So we'll be scoring a big batch of projects sometime over the winter. We do have to manually get these all in GIS because they're not necessarily tied to the way the form works. They're not tied to location. So that'll take a little bit of work. Our communications team, Jessica's here tonight to represent them. They've done a wonderful job with the Slow the Fast Down campaign. And you're probably seeing the banners and signs all over the city. Jessica, I believe, brought some here tonight. You can take home with you if you'd like a yard sign. And we've also got bumper stickers, magnets. Yeah, car magnets. Stickers, yeah. So, and I know they're planning on a lot more activities and mediums to get the word out. So, and I think we also will invite them back to show off a little bit and also get feedback from PBAC on what you'd like to see in this campaign. Yeah.
Question, definitely support bringing him in for a presentation. How many people have taken the pledge so far?
Oh, good point. 400-ish? 314. Okay, yeah. So, and this is... Yeah. Yeah. So we are definitely between the Slow the Fast Down and the Safe Streets nomination program, there's a great, there's definitely demand out there and an appetite for people to slow down. Some grant updates. So we submitted, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission recently put out a request for projects where cities would like technical assistance on any sort of planning or design effort related to active transportation. We submitted an application for the Lakeville Corridor Study, which we also submitted to the US DOT for Safe Streets for All, and received a recommendation for $40,000 for that. And then we also received confirmation that MTC will provide technical assistance on our active transportation program application next year in 2024. And what we outlined for them was a package of all of the priority projects, like I described, that come out of the active transportation plan. So basically, like I said, we would just bundle together all of the top projects. We'll definitely bring that to PBAC for your review and input and blessing on the list of projects. And then submit them as a package, one, a bundle of projects, not just one project. And then we still are waiting to hear back on the Safe Streets for All application. That was a $3.2 million request for citywide intersection improvements, and then about $200,000 for that Lakeville corridor study. So I believe we're supposed to hear back on that this month, is what we're hearing. The upcoming events, not too many with the holidays, but we do have a reminder every third Thursday of the month. Our Safe Routes to School Task Force meets. Our next meeting will be focused on McDowell and McKinley. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. We've got the holiday lighted bike ride that Pete mentioned on December 22nd, and then our next Safe Routes meeting, January 18th. So Safe Routes to School Task Force, really excited that we have that off the ground. We have had 2 meetings so far, as well as a walk audit. So we just last week did our walk audit at McDowell Elementary. We've developed a schedule to try to reach all public schools within Petaluma by, I believe we can get to, if we do monthly walk audits, we'll have them all done in early 2025. So again, one school a month, or doubling up where it makes sense, where schools are really close to each other. And the order of the list we set based on number of collisions that have occurred near the schools over the last 5 years. So McDowell was the top ranking school in that unfortunate category. McKinley is ranked second. So our next walk audit takes us to McKinley in early January. At our December Safe Routes meeting, we will be debriefing our McDowell walk audit and then previewing our McKinley walk audit. And that's the approach that we've talked about for all of the meetings moving forward, where we'll basically always have 2 schools that we are talking about. Again, those agendas are posted to Safe Routes, Sonoma County Safe Routes to Schools website. We're happy to be a partner in it, but Safe Routes is taking the lead on facilitating those meetings and posting the agendas and minutes and whatnot. The holiday lighted bike ride put on by Safe Streets Petaluma and several other community groups and businesses is on Friday the 22nd at 5:30. I know there's a route planned, flat 5 mile-ish, Pete, around West Petaluma, all ages friendly, start and finish at Aquas. And is there a place, Pete, where people can go for more info, or just?
There's a Facebook event.
Facebook event, there we go.
It doesn't have a lot more info than.
Okay.
We just said.
If you sign up, don't they send, it seems to me I signed up and got an email back showing me the route today.
I sent that to you.
Oh, you. I thought it was because I signed
Personally.
Okay, and because this was included in the staff updates last month, which we did not get to, but just wanted to quickly highlight that obviously there's also the countywide active transportation plan update going on right now. Several agencies, including the unincorporated county, which is relevant to us here. I've looked at their social pinpoint map. They've received a lot of comments in Petaluma. Likewise, we received a lot of comments that are out in the county. So we will be doing that data exchange to make sure that we're talking to each other. We're aware of the feedback that both efforts are getting. But if you have any comments on improvements you'd like to see, especially on the unincorporated roads just outside of the city, this would be a great way to get that feedback in. And likewise, Caltrans District 4 is updating their Bay Area-wide bike plan. So again, for us, what's most relevant here is the Lakeville corridor and anything touching 101. And so they've got a survey and a comment map as well. And here's our growing list of upcoming agenda items. I'll highlight some, just try to highlight some additions here. I added the Sonoma Marin Bike Share, Slow the Fast Down campaign. We've got Adam's micromobility presentation along with Councilmember Shribs and Pete, I understand. And then I know Committee Member Bond, you've also offered to present on your Blue Zones traffic calming demonstration project. So yeah, a lot of items to go through here, but as always, feel free to add to the list.
Can the city include the lighted bike parade in an upcoming community update? Their email? Just knowing that it's only on Facebook, it'd be good to blast that out.
It was in the last.
It was in the last one? Okay, good.
All right, so that's all I've got. Oh, and I didn't mention, I wanted to grab some pictures today. We did just have some work this week done on Garfield Drive. The striping is wrapping up there. They've been adding the painted bulb outs and signage out in the street. And likewise, there's a crew doing some painted bulb outs on Jefferson Street, and that was at Jefferson and Vallejo in response to a collision that happened earlier in the year involving a 5-year-old boy who was hit while crossing Jefferson Street at the Vallejo Street intersection. So we've got some striping improvements, painted bulb outs, moving the stop signs out into the street with the bumper blocks, kind of doing shortening up the crossing distance and calling more attention to the stop signs. We also took that opportunity to add a bulb out at the really awkward intersection of Jefferson and Payran. You've got that big, there's a really awkward corner there that makes it a really, really long crosswalk. So we've done the same, added a painted bulb out to try to shorten that crossing distance and improve visibility. So go check those out, Garfield and Jefferson. Those are underway this week.
Thank you so much. Okay, with that, we adjourn.
Oops, sorry, quick question. Sneak it in there. On the bike plan update, is that for Caltrans, is that relevant for the off-ramp intersections too? Would that be a place to focus those discussions, comments?
Yeah, generally Caltrans jurisdiction includes anywhere where their ramps interface with a city street, or sometimes it's a Caltrans it's a Caltrans intersection. So yeah.
Okay, cool, great, thank you.
Any more? Okay, with that, we adjourn at 9:15. Thank you.